6.5 is on the road in McAllen, Texas here at Zoho Day 2024. We are chatting all the way from economics to business SaaS, full stack computing, full stack applications. Dan, here we are. We're in our home state of Texas. How often does this happen?
Yeah, it's great to be in Texas. And, McAllen may not be the first place that comes to mind when you say, hey, we're going to do a tech event in Texas. Having said that, it's great to be here. The day started off with some conversations that we're going to dig into here just momentarily. We'll make everyone wait just a little longer to know who we're going to talk to. But, they start off talking about kind of driving, economic development, driving prosperity into different marketplaces. And, McAllen's a town right on the border of Mexico, and it's a thriving little town in some ways, but it has many of the challenges that smaller rural parts of the country have. So really interesting to come here, to be here. It's not San Francisco, Las Vegas, New York, or Austin.
Right.
But it's really great to be here, Pat.
Let's introduce our guest. It's great to have you, Sridhar, here. Thank you for coming on the 6.5.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, congratulations on the event. It's
Thank you.
Your events are not only very creative, hence the background here, but also you seem to go very global this year. I mean, at the event last night, at the dinner, I think you had kind of taste of the world.
Yeah.
Typically when I show up to Texas, it's barbecue, which you had,
We had that too, yeah.
Tacos,
tomahawk steaks, but you also had, even food from India, which I thought was quite special.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's kick off. You sort of heard my preamble. I'm talking a little bit about where we are. You gave a really interesting keynote speech, which you always do. You don't come out, a lot of tech CEOs come out and they're going to say, rah, rah, here's our product, rah, rah, here's all of our customers and development. You come out and you kind of get in front of a room of analysts and press, thinkers, thought leaders, and influencers, and you want to talk about your kind of view of the world. For instance, why we're here in McAllen. You came out with some really interesting commentary about how a few companies really dominated technology last year. Are you allowed to say dominated tech? How about you start there? Give us a little bit of just the flavor for everybody out in the audience of what you really came and talked about here today and why you thought this was the most appropriate message to deliver.
Yeah. So, as we started with, today, increasingly, the tech landscape is dominated by a few giants. That everybody knows that. And you look at any metric, sort of profit margin, you look at cash hoard, to the percentage of profit in the entire ecosystem going to the dominant players, and profit as a share of GDP, as compared to income, labor income as a share of GDP, all of those metrics, it's very clear that it's the rich are getting richer. And that's true in tech as well. And the question is, what is the broader societal industry implications first? What happens to other companies, the smaller companies, right? If you look at last year and a half, you saw a clear divergence between the big guys and the mid-sized to smaller players. We saw that. And because the cost of customer acquisition is high, we don't have enough differentiated technology in terms of a lot of the mid-sized companies. The acquisitions didn't happen that they were hoping to happen. So these are the structural forces for the non-big tech software players. And then the societal implications where places like McAllen, they're completely cut out of that whole value generation of tech. They consume iPhones and whatnot. You consume here, but you're not part of the value of production, value generated from production enough. And this is true for so many places. If this inequity is not addressed, it has broader implications. I mentioned some tech CEOs. Sam Altman has proposed UBI, Universal Basic Income, as a way in which we automate all production. You don't need employees, but we'll distribute UBI. And the government will tax the AI company to pay for UBI. That's basically the thesis. And that's one vision. So it's good that he recognizes the problem, that how are people going to derive income to consume all of the tech products and everything else if they don't have jobs or jobs that pay enough. So these are the questions that we talked about. Within that, I addressed how the enterprise software landscape itself is challenged by new emergence of tools that increase software productivity. We see this with LLMs, but it's broader than LLMs. We are working on some. I believe that 10x software productivity, development productivity is possible. That has implications for enterprise software scarcity, as I call it.
So you've had a strategy in place for a while, Transnational Localism.
Yeah.
And it's really focused on understanding core markets and doing a lot of your development, having people feet on the street, people programming and tech. And McAllen, I think, is a version of here in Texas. Can you talk about how transnational localism and McAllen fit, or do they even fit?
They do. So we unveiled this whole vision about 4 or 5 years ago, pre-pandemic. And then the pandemic interrupted all this. There's nobody could travel and all of this. In the last 6 months, I've come twice to McAllen now. So I think I'll keep coming back now. We are hiring a lot of people. So the goal is to move jobs closer to the customer with the idea that we need to generate the value from the production, meaning the software, what we provide the customer, more of the value have to be captured locally.
Right.
That's an operating principle we have. Why? Well, that's the only sustainable way. If production and consumption don't balance regionally, locally, we are going to have problems, and we are already seeing those problems. Resilience, lack of resilience. And there's only one plane company now that can serve everyone. These are the lack of resilience problems that we are seeing now. And then if there's only one company, they get, if they become inefficient, we have a problem. So how do we create the resilience? Answers, I believe, lie in tech itself. That is the key insight here, that we can invent our way out of this. And the way I capture that is lower cost capital goods technology. Production technology, all manner of production technology, whether it's software, whether it's machinery, all of that, can be done lower cost through R&D, through research and development. That's the key.
And you sort of followed this it's been prescriptive for you with Zoho in India. Even in kind of where the traditional sort of tech centers in India are, you've been outside of the tech center, right?
Yep.
Outside Chennai and where you're focused. And then here you're kind of bringing that same strategy to the U.S. I mean, how expansive, how scalable is this? I mean, I'd say there's thousands of McAllens in the United States, and there's hundreds of cities like that in India and across the world. Is this your vision with Zoho, is to bring this
Obviously, we cannot do it in every McAllen.
Of course.
But our hope is to demonstrate that these things work well enough, that a lot of companies adopt this type of models. It's already starting to happen. I see it happen already. In India, we are seeing a lot of companies announcing they are going to a smaller town. And so same thing I believe will happen here. In fact, when we moved to Austin, it was about 8-9 years ago, Austin wasn't this,
right.
You recall, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Austin still had a little bit of the local flavor. Mm-hmm. Now it's, it's completely, it's
very different.
A very different vibe now. McAllen has that same thing what Austin used to be like 8-10 years ago. And there's a lot of places like this. In Texas, not just, in the USA, but in Texas alone, you have like 10 places like this, and then maybe hundreds all over the US. So other companies have to do it. What I would urge my fellow CEOs, don't everyone flock to McAllen. That's not the point.
Right.
But find your McAllen.
Yeah.
Right. No, I think that's very wise, and it's definitely a unique strategy, right? Because most tech companies are let's hit the major MSAs, and if it's manufacturing, it's a manufacturing MSA. So it's very unique. You touched a little bit about AI and talked about the productivity that it will likely provide. Can you talk a little bit about the AI strategy, not only inside of Zoho, right? You talked a little bit in your keynote about making programmers more productive, but also maybe talk about how you're infusing this across the Zoho suite of products.
So first things, we are doing the LLMs, but the key thing here, in fact today a lot of presentations cover this, the smaller mid-sized models that are cheaper to run, but very domain specific. That is a key part of it. To take an expense management domain or fraud detection domain. You can run a 8 billion, 10 billion model, maybe 15 billion model. You will get a lot of the stuff that you get out of the bigger models at a much lower cost in terms of GPU compute, all of that. So that's one critical strategy. So we are running lots of models, lots of smaller, mid-sized models. That's the first step. The second, the software productivity itself. I don't believe that it's only about LLMs. We need a lot of complementary technologies. That's what I'm personally working on. That includes a lot of better languages, tools, compilers, frameworks, a lot of that. And there is fundamental work possible in it. Just like how LLMs came and sort of revolutionized Until then, people didn't know that all this was possible. And in a similar way, I believe a lot of innovation is possible in the act of software development. And we have to combine these two, the LLM-driven productivity. And they're also a very context-specific model. Like your Java code, you have an LLM very trained on only Java code, nothing else. That can offer payoff. And then combine with better tooling around security, all of that. You put them together, you can raise productivity. In existing languages, maybe you can squeeze out like 2 or 3x. But if you design systems from ground up, I believe 10x is possible.
Interesting.
So AI is a great sort of intersection of technology and some of kind of the more macro themes that you brought to light this morning at Zoho Day. And AI is going to drive, endless opportunity, productivity, new types of companies, businesses, and at the same time, you've heard some of your peer CEOs talk about changes in roles, jobs, augmentation, potentially less. Every industrial revolution, Sridhar, has led to more, not less jobs.
Yeah.
But it's not obvious yet. It's not obvious when you have a system now that writes for you, that does your math for you, that can code for you. What's going to come next? Do you have any kind of thoughts on how AI and society are going to meet? Because to your point, like the Sam Altman idea of UBI, it seems lazy.
Yeah.
It seems like I get it, and I get why we might want to end up there, but it seems lazy to me to be like, just give everyone money because only like 10 people are going to be needed anymore. I think the alternative is how do we up-level society, because that's what every revolution has done before. What are you thinking about this?
Yeah. So I'm an optimist here. Humans will always find new things to do. Yeah. That's not the problem.
They need a purpose.
Right. But the problem is this. Do those things humans find themselves to do, would they pay enough to afford all the technology they have to consume to stay relevant? That's the real question. And I gave the example, singing for kids might be a good job that many humans would want to do, right? That's the purpose for them. They love kids, all of that. But will that job pay enough to afford the latest iPhone or the latest Vision Pro, whatever? That is the question. And in other words, it's the production question here is a technology and automation question. The consumption becomes a political economy distribution question. One answer is the UBI. That, hey, we won't worry about the distribution question. We'll just give everybody write a free check. I believe better answers are possible, and that involves that localized production and consumption. So that's basically my 2-minute pitch on that.
Yeah, I want to talk about India for a sec. So biggest opportunity right now for growth of any country that I see is India.
Yeah.
And that comes from there's a little bit of politics involved between different countries, but education levels and the work ethic in India is just incredible. And we've seen a lot of things taken off the table that were inhibitors, which is infrastructure.
Yeah.
Roads, internet, electricity, water, and things that are baseline to get this moving. And there's been this incredible amount of investment.
Yeah. In fact, there's a massive capex boom going on in India.
Yeah, it's been impressive, particularly in the last 5 or 6 years. And I see really amazing, incredible things that maybe we had seen in China before, maybe before that, South Korea, Taiwan, Japan, right? So, the wheel of growth innovation. What is your role? I mean, of course, you're based out of India, but what is your role in driving that growth in India?
Really, my primary role is to make sure that we invest enough in R&D. And one of our current problems in India is that we don't invest enough in R&D. We're investing heavily in a capex boom, but R&D investment is not sufficient. Like you measure it as a percentage of GDP, percentage of corporate value added, percentage of profit, any of the metrics, we are still low. This requires an R&D mindset, an R&D culture that we are only now beginning to build in India. So that's really, I see it as one role. Get Indian companies to invest in R&D, invent.
Right, and you'd hope that people would be asking your opinion, given that you're, if not one of the largest tech companies in India.
Yeah, definitely. I participate in a lot of industry events, a lot of even government-sponsored events where I give the same message. It's very warmly received. The key problem is not that people don't want to invest in R&D. How to go about it?
Right.
What is an R&D culture? Because R&D is not something where you can forecast a clear return on investment, like you know exactly what's going to happen every quarter, all of that. We have to take some bets. We have to do some experiments. That mindset we have to cultivate.
Excellent.
We already do it, in Bollywood.
Right.
They make gigantic movies now and they take risk.
Yes.
We just have to apply that same thing in R&D.
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about how this plays out within Zoho. Private company, you always like to kick off the presentations talking a little bit kind of about that, the contrast, and you threw some numbers about the cash flow that just a small number of companies create in operating income daily.
Daily.
It's incredible. By the way, your accomplishments as well.
Okay.
But the business has to evolve. So you've got this kind of sense of altruism and social good. You also have a thriving innovation hub. You're playing in everything from AI and algorithm development to chip development, which is something Pat and I will love to talk about. How do you sort of find that common space of social good and societal and altruism and transnational localism, and at the same time be a great servant leader to your people, to your customers, make sure your products stay innovative and on the front edge so that they can grow their businesses on your platform?
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually don't think of this as a dualistic, like this part of the brain works on this, that part of the brain works on that. I holistically integrate the two. And the way I do that is I always, even my engineers are working in a rural area, know why your work is so important. You are going to bring technology to this region. You are going to help balance this regional economy. We are going to derive what I call the high margin, high value added revenue here, which will have a 10x multiplier effect. That's very conventional economics. Like if McAllen region finds, let's say, a new cure for cancer, somebody here, they sell it to the whole world. Suddenly this place will become very, very rich. Qualcomm made San Diego so wealthy.
Right.
You saw that in the 90s. San Diego housing in 93 versus what it became in now, so much was driven by Qualcomm. You know this, you're in the industry. It's all driven by one company. One company had that impact on that whole region. So it's possible to do it, but this is what every region has to catch up on something. What's our critical competitive edge? Where can we generate value? That is, to me, R&D, and that, if I'm able to convince the engineers to work on these, that's my first and foremost job, then I connect all these threads. This region is going to benefit from your work. We are going to create jobs for people who are not in tech that pay better. It's not just the tech people who get better wages, it's the drivers, it's the cooks, it's the housekeeping staff, all of those, the hotels around, and that is critical too. Like we brought so many people to McAllen, all the taxi drivers here, the Uber drivers, they all thank us.
I love that. We'll check on the way back to the airport.
Yeah.
So we'll tell them where we were.
Yeah.
So this has been a great conversation so far, and I wanted to pivot a little bit to your priorities for 2024. I mean, I have to say, covering you as an industry analyst firm, and you're doing so many different things in, I'll call it PaaS and SaaS.
Yeah.
I mean, ERP, SCM, CRM, database as a service, low code, no code.
Yeah.
I mean, and you even brought out a web browser as well.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a
Privacy-centric, very privacy-centric.
You have a lot of things going on. As you look to 2024, well, actually, we're in 2024.
Yep.
What are some of the biggest opportunities for Zoho and its customers? What do you really want to lean into? I'm not asking for your roadmap or to pre-announce anything, but what are the things that are on your mind? Obviously, AI-ifying things.
So I mentioned already the AI-driven software productivity gain. That's one project I'm driving. We also are, from a customer immediate perspective, we are evolving as a really good platform. From a bundle of products, a platform evolution that's well underway, it's happening. That is how we are moving upmarket. Our upmarket momentum is coming from our platform strategy. And that includes the platform of service, but really directed towards Zoho customers, not generally offered yet, but that will evolve too. So that's where the kind of evolution is happening right now. And data centers everywhere, getting closer to the customer, more offices everywhere. I'm going to Mexico tomorrow. So
Right. That's great.
Yeah, it's really exciting to have spent some time with you. I maybe just wanted to do a quick rewind just before we take off here. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you got a busy slate of conversations. This one's the best, I hope.
Of course it will. It's first and best.
But privacy was sort of your theme a year ago. And while I think you're a visionary, and so you're not necessarily going to talk about the same thing every year, I was kind of curious. We saw the DMA made some changes in Europe. It seems that with AI, there's more conversations about IP rights and copyright and infringement.
Yeah.
So you were a little ahead of your time. Is privacy centrism? Is there still a need for this? Is that going to change? How is that talk track evolving? for you?
Absolutely. As everybody can talk the talk, only few can walk the walk because you have a problem of business models. You have to have alignment to your fundamental business model to be able to afford privacy. Can a company afford privacy? I mean, privacy guarantee to their customers. That's why we have taken a very principled stance from the beginning. This is our business model. This is how we get paid. Customers know, everyone knows. This Ula browser that you mentioned is a very cornerstone of privacy because it starts there. And because we are putting in safeguards there, for example, including VPN built in, a lot of things that you would have to pay for, we are bundling it in right now. Just so that the privacy can be a cornerstone. We have multiple modes of work in Ula, all of that. There's a lot of innovation going there because it's on the client side it has to start. Then on the infrastructure side, we make sure that customer data is never shared with anyone without their explicit integration request. Like we just don't share it outside at all. So these are some of the safeguards we are putting in. And we have now a very strong compliance team, particularly the GDPR rights we have extended worldwide to all our customers. Meaning we treat every customer as though they were subject to the EU regulations so that they get the best protection possible. So those are some of the ideas. And we've written the code to enable GDPR, so we are applying it worldwide.
Yeah, well, Sridhar, I want to thank you so much for spending some time with us here at Zoho Day 2024.
Thank you.
Great event, great way to start our day hearing from you. I personally love any intersection of sort of technology, macroeconomics. You know, there's so much going on in the world. We've got a big election year that's going to definitely change the trajectory.
I didn't talk about that today.
So who are you going to, no, we will not ask you here, but let's definitely make sure that we stay in touch and maybe have you on again, maybe next year at Zoho Day 2025.
Yes.
But thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you very
for
much.
coming all the way to McAllen.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Listen, many more people traveled farther than we did. So thank you for having it in Texas again.
Thank you so much for coming in. Thank you everyone for tuning in today. Hit that subscribe button. Join us for all of our episodes here on the 6-5. It's fun to be on the road here in McAllen, Texas at Zoho Day 2024. But for this one, for this show, for this pod, it's time to say goodbye. See y'all later.